Episode 14, Locals Only Podcast here with Chelsea Manganaro. Welcome.
How are you?
It's been quite a while. We were just chatting, trying to figure out how long it's actually been. So we kind of met through work at Lockheed Martin 10 years ago now. It's just crazy. That was my first job out of school. You had already had a couple jobs and then transferred over to the Archibald site. So that's where we met. And it's just been a lot of brainstorm sessions at Lockheed on how we were going to get out of Lockheed since then. But what's new, Chelsea?
Yeah, not too much. I mean, a couple businesses. So I've taken on the roof at Oppenheim food, which is the newest thing that I've been working on. But of course, I started with the yoga studio. That was like my passion and why I bought the building and opened the first location was to share my passion of yoga. But the name, I mean, I'm sure you remember, was supposed to be Italian restaurant. So NearMe was supposed to be an Italian restaurant. And then I fell in love with yoga when I was in San Diego. And I'm like, I just really think that the area needs a proper yoga studio. So since then, opened the cafe in 2017. Revamped our store, and then I had apartments in the building, but I converted those into Airbnbs. So I have 4 Airbnbs and the cafe in that building now. So
would you consider yourself a serial entrepreneur at this point?
So it's funny. I wouldn't really say that. I would say that I created businesses that feed each other. So I created an ecosystem versus, an entrepreneur. So each business helps the other business kind of grow and bring new people in. And in addition to that, I do enjoy opening businesses. So I'm now trying to figure out, like, why do I have all these businesses? How did I get here? What's my goal? And how do I start to transition out of the person that's executing all these things and start being the owner?
Yeah, I could vividly remember a lot of our conversations. And I think personally for me, it was just because it was just like this shock factor of like my first job, and it's Lockheed Martin, it's a government job, and like going through a turnstile every day, like all the security clearances and everything that we had to do just to work there. And then like it was true like cubicle life. This is way pre-COVID. There was no working from home, none of that good stuff. So I was not 6 months in before I was like just literally daily I had like different ideas on stuff that I personally wanted to do. And then when you joined, however long in, we were like immediately bonding over that desire for something beyond those walls. So we had tons of chats about that. And yeah, I could remember like sitting down at your desk one day and you were saying like, yeah, like near me, like, so like people, if they Google like yoga and it'll just be like yoga near me, and then NearMe Yoga pops up. Yeah. And I could remember those conversations vividly. So it was always fun brainstorming with you and spitballing ideas and stuff like that. But did you, like very early in the yoga studio, like creation, if you will, did you realize, or was it always the intent where you wanted to have the cafe, like you said, like the ecosystem, the retail shop as well? Or did it start as just purely focused on your love for yoga, and then it was like, you know what, like it would be cool if we had the cafe and the retail shop as well?
I think there's 2 definitive answers for that. So one, I only open and invest my time in things that, one, I think that the area needs, and 2, something that I personally like and need. So it's not hard for me to sell it. So I would say that's the first thing. But 2, it was also because I wanted to fully get out of the rat race of 9 to 5 and do it in a way where I wasn't losing everything in order to gain something else. So I'd never wanted to step backwards. So it was a little bit of, using those other businesses to, build the actual corporation. But then on the other side, it was, we don't have anywhere in music to eat healthy lunch. Yeah. So as simple as that.
I know. Really. I remember that conversation as well, where it's just like, I think like I had just gotten back from like a Cali trip or whatever. And I was like, It's crazy. I'm just like looking back now. It's like I was 23 years old and I had my first acai bowl and I was like, wow, that is good. And I'm like, you come back here and I'm like, there is not one single place you could get one. And since obviously it's been 10 years, like there's other places now where you could get it. But to your point, you did fill that void immediately. And it was like genuinely out of necessity. Like everything you're saying, like I'm just vouching for in my brain. I'm like, I remember all of those conversations. You're like, I want to eat healthy at lunch and like something that's close and convenient and like could be quick, or you could hang out, and you're like, there's nothing.
Right.
And I was like, it's cool. It's cool that you did it. It's been cool seeing your whole progression through this whole thing, because you kind of did manifest a lot of the things that, and not even a lot, you manifested everything that at least we talked about and then some. So it's been really cool watching from afar. And like, sometimes you just know, like I was talking about this on the last podcast with Brian Lally, which is like when you're surrounding yourself with people, number one, you get the rub from them, and it's like a little bit contagious, where it's like your entrepreneurial spirit like rubbed off on me and like got my brain ticking and like all these ideas. And like I was vetting through like all these wacky ideas just to like get to the point where I could like run with this. But I think the writing is on the wall a lot of the time, where it's like you're a hustler, and like, yeah, that could work in a 9 to 5. And you could climb the corporate ladder, but it's sometimes it's not at the pace that you want to grow at. You're at the mercy of other people leaving, positions becoming open, the politics of corporate America, all that stuff, versus, taking the bull by the horns, if you will, and, growing at whatever pace you want to put into it. So yeah, that's been cool.
And I mean, I did both I even had the cafe for 2 years. So I left Lockheed in 2019. So I had 2 yoga studios, the store, the cafe, and the commercial building, of course, while still working the entire time.
Crazy.
So it was...
I literally don't know how you did that.
Yeah, it was a lot. And also the yoga festival.
Right.
Completely forgot about that. And would run that twice a year.
You doing Yoga Fest twice a year?
I was right at the beginning. I did it twice a year. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And I went to the gym. Like, what? I don't know how I fit all those hours in the day, but, it was crazy to look back on. But for me, it was difficult because when people would say like, oh, like, what do you do? I would always answer contract negotiator. Mm-hmm. Oh, I work at Lockheed Martin.
It's just easier.
Yeah. I mean, and still, I don't even know if I could answer what I do now.
Yeah. But it's like, even the way you just said it there, like you don't take, I can't speak for you, but it doesn't seem like you took pride in that answer.
Yeah.
Like when you're saying contract negotiator for whatever, it's just like, it's what title, I do. Yeah. It's not who I am. And now I think what you do is who you are.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It actually reminds me, I jotted it down because I felt like it was fitting for this conversation. So Nick Saban, famous college football coach, like arguably one of the best of all time, has since retired, but was Alabama's football coach and like had the craziest 10 to 12, 15 year run in recent history anyway. I saw him speaking and he said, if you want to be happy for an hour, eat a steak. If you want to be happy for a day, play golf. If you want to be happy for a month, buy a car. If you want to be happy in life, ask yourself, if I didn't show up here today, would anyone miss my ass? And that's how you know you accomplished something of significance in the world. And I think that's where you're at now. Because it's like, if, like you said, your ecosystem doesn't run without you. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be like that. But in these early, like say like 10 years of establishment, like if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, that whole thing falls apart. And like, it's not just a yoga studio that people go to work out. Like I'm sure you have a community built around it where people are now, creating friendships at those classes and the Yoga Fest and all these things. So, it's just a credit to you that like you took that leap and made it happen. I thought that was a fitting quote.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an easy decision. I always kind of knew it was a necessity. I think that a lot of people think that owning a business is glamorous. Mm-hmm. and they don't actually understand that it is not, you have no holidays, you have no time off.
Yeah.
I'm going to the bathroom and I have my phone and I'm marketing, like I'm answering messages. So like there's no time away from it. It doesn't go away. It comes with you when you do go away. So there's still going to be work to do, especially when there's so many moving pieces like I have, which, is no one else's fault except my own.
Yeah. It's
Right.
it's what you signed up for, but the work feels different. Like to your point where it's like, you could go from 40 hours a week at a corporate job or 50, whatever it is. And like, you just can't wait to get out of there and unwind, where it's like, I am happy to put in 60 hours or 65 because number one, selfishly, you're only scratching your own back, but it's
I'm
rewarding.
at like 100 hours though.
Yeah.
So I'm at like a 7 to 9, which is a little too much right now. Like I'm realizing that sometimes it's like 7 to like 11, and it's getting to be like the point where I really have to like, and I will, like I do
Strike
say
a
like I'm
balance.
done.
Yeah.
Like I think I said last week, I was like, I don't even know if I'm capable of speaking. I just had the longest weekend ever. But it is taking like a day to recover, and sometimes I don't know when that day is. So I don't like scheduling like, oh, I'm not going to be here on Tuesdays, or I don't want to come in on a Saturday. Well, if I want to be there on Saturday, I'm going to go in.
Right.
So that's the luxury of owning your own business.
Right. You find the opening when it presents itself
Yeah.
rather than scheduling it. What's it like, I guess piggybacking off that statement of 100 hours a week, do you have any plans for expansion? And so you have the yoga studio in Music and the second one in Peckville, cafes in Music. Oppenheim is happening in Scranton. Yoga Fest is it's every June, right?
So, yeah, but we do have one in the works for like a winter expo. So it'll be in November. So we're gonna do something a little bit smaller.
Cool.
Obviously, it'll be indoors, but I do think that there's like a need for more holistic practices in the winter, because that's when we start to get into this like really negative spot. So, So
seasonal depression is so real.
I'm trying to like catch it before it gets there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would do, if there's two things I could change about everything, it would be that there was a beach here.
That would be nice.
Like, that would be like first and foremost. Or if I could take everything that I did and bring it towards a location that my whole family was at. And I always blame my mother. I'm like, why here?
Yeah, we could have been anywhere.
Anywhere. This is where you decided.
That's what I struggle with. I'm like, I would like to just lift up the town and everybody I know.
Yeah.
Just plop them somewhere else.
For sure.
But yeah, it's tough to leave then once you get rooted. Now you're not going anywhere.
No.
You're really locked in.
Yeah.
But that's all right. You got a good community around you now and good cool stuff going on. So
I would say, all right, so areas of expansion, potentially maybe another yoga studio. So that's in like the talking phases of just understanding like, is it worth it? And is there a need for it? And then I would love to open a cafe actually in this area. So I've looked at multiple properties.
Oh, please do.
I know. So like Sullivan's, I looked at that building. It just needed a lot more work. The old like dress shop that's literally right down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at that. I actually looked at like 3 places right around like here. I didn't put it all together until I was just on this.
Oliphant's going to be bumping now. Got Basiliga buying Old Town. Barn Company's already there.
Yeah.
There's something else going on. But like I've seen like 2 or 3 businesses open recently down there. And that little drag has a lot of potential.
So it would have been a great opportunity. I just was like in a growth phase for the cafe. We were putting a deck on and I'm like, I can't take on this gigantic project right now. It just wasn't right timing. But I would love to put something down here and, have the yoga studio in a better location as well. We're still in like the same basement location that we've been in since I opened 9 years ago. So, there's potential for it as long as it's the right spot. So it's just a waiting game.
I was literally thinking that the other day. Obviously, like, when John Basiliga touches something around here, things usually go well and things kind of start to sprout up around it just because the level of investment that he's willing to put in. to both Scranton and like even Moscow and other areas and everything. That definitely has its trickle down effect, which is nice. And I'm like, I always like thought about like having some sort of brick and mortar. Like I know like a purely retail store would never work. It would have to be something to supplement it as well, just because like people aren't shopping down Main Street anymore. But I'm like, this is the time to get in an elephant because it's like probably still cheap, and like some of those buildings are a little run down.
I know they're definitely.
I'm like,
run down.
I'm like the windows closing now.
Yeah.
So you got to.
I don't even know. I like drove by. I'm like, oh boy.
You know.
So I mean, there was potential there. There's just not a lot of parking.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
So for the yoga studio, that's a problem. For the cafe, it could be a problem, but I think people figure it out when like, you know, they're not in a rush for a time slot to get someplace.
Yeah.
So you know, it's on the radar. It's been on the radar for a couple years.
Selfishly.
Yeah. I think there's a need here too.
Yeah.
For
100%.
a healthy like place to get a quick lunch.
Yeah.
You know, we're even in music, like I keep telling my staff, I'm like, guys, we're not McDonald's. And also like, even when you go through McDonald's, one, it's not cheap anymore. And two, you're still waiting.
Right.
It's not instant.
Right. It's not this like 3-minute deal that's $4. Like it's so my boss actually at work, the other, she's got like 2 kids and she's like, yeah, like to go to McDonald's and feed my family of 4, it's like $50, $60 now.
Insane.
Yeah. So it's like, why not just go get something healthy at this point?
And we're like running DoorDash still. And sometimes we're getting orders out in like 7 minutes.
Jesus.
Like not always,
right.
But when we have like a system going, like we're good.
Yeah. And
like,
if you can't wait, 7 minutes to get your food, like, come on.
With like healthy, fresh ingredients.
Right.
Like
What
the best ingredients that you can get.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm like, we're not McDonald's. We're not in competition with McDonald's.
Right.
We're giving healthy food to people that normally would not be able to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if they have to wait a couple minutes, they have to wait. It's just the drivers are tough.
Yeah. It's I know I struggle with that as well. Like people's bar has just been raised or lowered, however you want to look at it, so much in terms of like even getting shipments out. It's like if people like I get emails constantly. Like if somebody orders a t-shirt on a Monday and it's not there by Wednesday, they're like, hey, just wondering where my order's at. I'm like, dude, I'm not Jeff Bezos. Like, I'm sorry. I just like, that's impossible.
If you have this much time to email me, why don't you come and help me ship out?
Yeah.
Like that's my response to anyone. Like, yeah, we're hiring. So you could help.
I know. It's, and like, obviously like you're trying to keep everybody happy, but it's just like, I wish, and again, the 1% are the loudest and like 99% of people don't give a shit and understand, but it's like, man, like just have some wherewithal to realize like 2-day shipping is not normal for most places. No. Like it's just impossible. And similar with food delivery. But yeah, I guess like taking one step backwards, like you were talking how for like 2 years or more, or even I guess you were still working part-time, like a corporate job, like a 9-to-5, while you were doing all of this. And like I remember like even when you got your like it wasn't like this like plug and play thing. Like you redid the whole building.
Oh yeah.
Like gutted it. Mm-hmm. Oh, that just reminded me. I forgot.
That was 10 years ago.
I made a table. You were one of my first tables.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. We redid the store.
Yeah. That chevron table.
Oh, and the table as well. Yeah, the table.
Yeah,
yes. The table had been repurposed a few times. My dad cut it in
like
half.
14 feet long. It was friggin' massive.
My dad had to pick it up on the rollback.
I remember you saying that. I mean, that's the only way to train. I don't even know. Yeah. Like massive. And like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was still living at home. My dad is in there. He's like,
what are you doing?
He's like, what are you doing? He's like, a 14-foot chevron table. Like, he's like, how much you getting for this? I'm like, not enough, Dad. I'm like, I didn't know what to charge. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like happy to get to work and like learn. And he's like, we're like 2 months into it. He's helping me every single night, ready to friggin' rip my head off because I was just like way in over my head at the time. But then it turned out pretty cool.
It did.
I mean, not the best, but it was all right.
It got repurposed into 2 tables.
I remember you saying you had to cut it.
It could be like change direction. And then Scott made it into the bar that was in the cafe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he used the same thing. So he was able to repurpose it. Because I mean, where do you put said 14
Yeah,
foot
you need
table.
a really big space for that.
So, so we had it in the bar for a long time. I still have half of it. So
Nice.
it's
Good.
in
Well,
the basement, but yeah.
I'm glad it's still standing because I wasn't so sure when it went on that rollback how long it was going to last. But good to know. But yeah, I guess just like say somebody, if you were giving advice to somebody who was in your shoes at that time where it's like, either they have an idea or maybe they even have something already going, like what would be like some of the best like actionable advice that you would give somebody in terms of like timing out your like from a financial perspective, from a workload perspective, like all that stuff, like what would you, even looking back, like hindsight's obviously 2020, like if it's, hey, you should have jumped 2 years earlier, like maybe that's your answer, or is it like, do you think that was the wisest decision at that time? And
so I think for me, I am not probably the best person to ask for business advice because I still am very spiritual. So a lot of my decisions are based off of like manifestations and just what's meant to be will be, and the right timing. So I trust the universe will provide in a different way that like a coach would be like, okay, that's very hokey. That's not how it works. But for like, if somebody was like, oh, I want to open this business and do whatever, I would say is keep your day job. Truly, like keep your day job,
keep your benefits.
Continue doing what you're doing for as long as you possibly can. And even if you have to take a small step back, it should not be a dramatic step back. There's no reason to open a business and dig yourself a hole and then have to go back into corporate America, because that's wildly worse in my opinion. Keep your, obviously don't burn any bridges. But at the same time, most businesses do not succeed, and most people aren't born to be business owners. There's even things that like, actually what I'm lacking in now is the finance work for the business.
Of all things.
Of all the things. So
yeah, well, stuff just gets backburned, and it's like until you get to that point where
it's not a priority,
right? And it's like
it is a priority, but
until it gets to the point where it's like, oh shit, it's like gone really bad. Like maybe I need to hire somebody or part time, whatever. It's like it's not that you're not capable. It's just again like you can only do so much. So it's just like until it becomes a true problem, then you address it, I guess. But but like I think testing your idea and then validating it in the marketplace is like the smartest thing you could do. And especially if you're lucky enough to have that opportunity to continue to work, like if you have a good paying job with benefits or something right now, I would like that's sound advice from in my opinion as well. Just because like if you have an idea to go make handmade blankets or something, and it's like you make 3 of them and you give them to friends and family, like of course they're gonna be like, oh my god, I love it, like I'm sure that took so long, like thank you so much, it's great. But like go ask 4 strangers if they would pay $120 for this blanket, and until not only asking them but and like they're like, yeah, that's a nice blanket, until you get the sale, until it is truly proven in the marketplace that people are willing to pay for whatever you're going to provide, whether it's a service or a product, whatever it is, keep that corporate job.
I mean, there's almost no person that I would say absolutely like leave your job and take on this new venture. If they didn't have a job and they're like, I'm looking to figure it out in a different way, I would still say get a part-time job. Get something that's maybe not a full commitment of a contract, but have another set of income, because if you don't, your business now becomes a priority, but in a way that it has to pay the bills. It no longer is your passion, and that was one of the main reasons why I didn't leave Lockheed until I did.
Especially doing something like yoga, I'm sure, like, because it's like, again, it was something you loved. It wasn't, so it was something you saw as a void in the market, so it was a business opportunity, but also, like you don't want to sacrifice your love and passion and all the benefits that you found from doing yoga just in the name of a dollar or whatever. But
for sure. And that was I wouldn't even say that the yoga studio is the reason that I left. It was the cafe because it was just so much work. It's a completely different animal. It doesn't sleep and it expires.
Yeah.
So like
That's a good point.
it's constant every single day, reordering. People don't walk in the door. We can't sell the food. So it's constant marketing. It's a level of, day trading, like all of the information to people to make sure that they come in, and getting the exposure in a way that is also word of mouth. Like, oh, I had this place, but then also keeping the people that come consistently. So we thankfully have, plateaued, I think, in not needing, I mean, you always need to market, but, when I look at the reports, it's like 50% return people. So like we sometimes have people there every single day to eat.
That's awesome. Hey guys, if you listen to the last episode, you might have heard me mention this pain relief cream from Bullhead Botanics. It's a CBD pain relief cream. And if you're anything like me, you might have had your reservations about using CBD products, but I'm here to reassure you that this company's products are completely legit and their CBD is all natural. Bullhead Botanics is a company that started locally here in PA, and they're now selling nationwide. The plant is GMP certified, and each all-natural batch is third-party tested, so you don't have to worry about any of those mystery ingredients sneaking into any of their products. You really get what you pay for with them, and that's quality CBD. They have a whole bunch of products too. It's not just the pain relief cream. Their best sellers are their anti-anxiety chewables that come in fruit punch and black cherry flavors, their high potency pain relief cream like I just mentioned, and their pet calming treats. And I could vouch for these as well. Wrangler, for the first 5 years of his life, was completely unafraid of fireworks, thunder, gunshots, all that stuff. But just within the past 6 months, the storms have really been affecting him. So I knew the fireworks were probably going to have the same effect. Just gave him one of these pet calming treats on the 4th and 5th of July. And it really helped him out, getting through the night with the fireworks going like crazy. So these would be perfect for obviously like the 4th of July fireworks, but also any thunderstorms or anything like that. So if your pets are suffering with that anxiety, these are a great choice as well. So go check them out at bullheadbotanics.com and use code LOCAL20 for 20% off your first order. I'm telling you, this stuff works. It's a really good product and there's no side effects. So give them a shot. Again, it's code LOCAL20, bullheadbotanics.com.
Because there's not anywhere else. Yeah, right. There's not anywhere else to go. And I have a big enough menu that there's something for everyone and something to change up with every day. So maybe it's a little too big. That would be like probably what somebody that would analyze it would say. But it's a lot of the same ingredients. So for me, it's like, well, this stuff is just continuously moving. So,
just get creative with different ways to incorporate
and I really enjoy making the menu. That's like one of my favorite parts of it. I mean, I don't love making the sandwiches. I will. And, Victoria comes in all the time. She's like, it's like the placebo effect. Like, why does it taste better if you made it?
That's real. Because, I don't know. Like, when my grandma used to make me sandwiches when I was a little kid, I'm like, this is different than when my mom made it for me or if I made it myself. Right. Just, folded the turkey a certain way. It was just hit different.
Yeah, for sure.
What's, just for, shits and gigs, what's, your 3, best sellers?
The acai bowl is high on there. The buffalo chicken grilled cheese and the wrap, I would say they're pretty much the same. And the chunky monkey smoothie. So
I was checking that out on socials recently. I'm like, God damn.
They're super popular. And I've had multiple businesses try to take them and it doesn't matter because it's still that placebo effect. They're not going to make it, even if they have my exact recipe, just for whatever strange reason, it's never going to taste the same. Yeah. So, that's
setting maybe too.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know, a little bit of everything.
I don't know why. Yeah. Just, it always seems like, even if you get the exact same thing someplace else, it never really tastes the same.
Even it's weird to think about from the food perspective, but if it was a smoothie on the go or a drink, sometimes, and I'm sure people obviously think about this, but I enjoy sometimes drinking the lid. For the longest time, I would get a medium coffee at Dunkin' Donuts or something because you would get a different lid than you would on the small. The small had that the serrated cut in the middle, the ones that you would get at a high school football game if you got a hot chocolate that would fold back and then stick. versus like the medium just had the little like sipping part that flipped back, and like for the longest time they were getting the 70-cent upcharge on me, and it because, worked.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's subtle things that are different in food, which I'm glad about, because if it wasn't that, then how do you stay competitive in like a market that's not, I mean, there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to food.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're not getting new food groups at it. We're, you know, man making some of it now, but it's not like, you know, there's going to be a new fruit out there that people are raving about that, you know.
Isn't it weird? Again, maybe this is me just like living under a rock, and you're probably the wrong person to ask this. I feel like if I asked my friends, they would maybe be on board. But like how I didn't have an acai bowl until I was like 22. Like when we were kids, avocados were not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that my mom was buying avocados.
It was like when we were in like high school, it was like they're all the rage. Well, so like it is weird how
sushi like got popular.
True. That is probably what
I mean, my mom was definitely not going and buying avocados as a kid.
Yeah. No. They were not
the same thing with ticks. Like, you know, I was always in the woods.
Yeah.
Always in the creek, whatever it is.
Crick, NEPA, crick.
And truly never once was my mom like, let me check you for a tick.
Not a once.
No.
Never had them either.
No.
It is weird. Oddly enough, like my work kind of overlaps with this now, but like, so it started in Lyme, Connecticut, obviously, or what, and the way it's expanding now across the country, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like you could, if you look at like those animated like 10-year spreads or whatever on the map, it's just like one state after another, and like the density of them or whatever, like
just keeps going.
Yeah,
crazy.
it's freaking crazy. But they are trying to. There's a bunch of manufacturers now trying to make like vaccinations for it to prevent it and stuff. So,
well, unless they're going to vaccinate the deer.
Right. I know. But like,
it's just going to keep spreading.
But at least I actually had Lyme disease.
Yeah.
It was probably 3 years ago. It was like archery season. I was bow hunting like pretty consistently. And it was early in the season. It was warm. I remember because like I was like wearing quarter zips because like I always wear layers or whatever just in case you get hot or cold. And it was really hot that day, and I had my quarter zip down quite a bit because I was like sweating from the walk in, and I didn't realize it. And then like 3 days later, I noticed it in like my chest hair, and I'm like, fuck. So I tweezed it and like I got it out completely, got the head, like all the stuff you're supposed to do. But I think at that point it's too late because like if you don't get it,
did you send it in to get tested or
yeah. So but the next day then I had the bullseye like clear as day. I always say like I looked like friggin' Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I was like just like big red ring right in the middle. I'm like shit. But like I've heard so many horror stories like because like you could get like paralysis from it. You could get all messed up from it.
My stepdad had it, and it actually moved under the skin, so the bullseye like was in a couple different spots, which is wild.
Yeah, there's something so like I think it's obviously just because like you know the damage they could do, but like I'm so skeeved out by them now. Like
I know.
I'm ultra paranoid now after that.
I know. Same.
But like
I had one like in the back of my head, scratched it, and it must have fell.
Yeah.
It was like on my back. Scott was like, "Do you have a birthmark?" And I was like, "No."
It's insane how small they are, though.
Yeah.
Because like you don't even feel them until they start swelling up a little. Like, and like everybody thinks like it, like people who've never had it on them. Like everybody assumes it's like a little spider, where it's like if you just flick it, it'll go off.
No.
Their little arms are like glue, even before it's burrowed its head into you.
Yeah.
Like when they're just climbing up and down your arm, you could flick it as hard as you want and it's not going anywhere. So like even like take like my example, like I obviously showered those days after I had it on me and like scrubbed my whole body and I didn't even feel it for 3 days. It's crazy.
Wild. I know.
And they do always go for like how you said, like your hairline on the back of your neck, and like like chest hair and like weird like like it's like a weird like thing for hair kind of. I know they're friggin' gross.
Yeah, could live without.
Why do they even exist?
I know. I'm sure we created them.
You know, You know what the best animals for ticks are?
The possums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They eat like 200 a day. Well, I got to keep the possums around.
I know. Poor things.
Possum posse.
So Scott and I are building in the woods. So
Oh,
that
are ya?
leads to the, the Lyme disease, like capital of the world.
Yeah.
So
where are you
behind my mom's,
building?
yeah, behind my mom's house.
Oh,
So,
nice. That's awesome.
we got like a plot of land back there.
Cool.
So we're in the starting phases, and I just literally want a barn. Like everyone's like,
Just
what?
do a barndominium?
I'm like, barn, only requirement, indoor pool.
I like it. Indoor pool?
That's it. Where
Use
the
it all
garage
year.
doors go up. I don't care
That's
about anything
cool.
else.
That's sweet.
And two,
He's probably happy to hear that.
yeah.
And I have to admit, I'm slightly surprised.
No one's going to, I know. Like, I'm so glad I didn't build 10 years ago because it would be like an elaborate, bright white house that but now I'm like, no one's going to see it. It's in the middle of the woods. Don't care.
You're always working anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want any guests. I don't want any guest rooms. Like if they want to come,
Just want to go in my indoor pool.
Or they could stay in one of the Airbnbs, like, or the couch. Like I'm not. So yeah,
that's cool.
Very different.
Save a lot of jingle going the barn door route too.
And it'll be up in a weekend.
I know. It's insane how fast they put those up.
Yeah, but there's no basement.
Yeah, it's all right. Put a little attachment off the side for whatever you need.
Yeah.
Tons of people hire the Amish. They come up with like a squad of like 30 guys, and they're in and out in friggin'
literally
like 4 days.
Yeah, 2 weekends. But yeah, so I'm glad I waited to build because it definitely is a completely different. Like I want a commercial kitchen, a huge laundry room, and why I don't understand why we don't have our closet in the laundry room. Like I just, why do we move our clothes to our bedrooms? It's just like a weird concept.
That makes sense. That's a good point. I actually, so we're kind of in the works too. And I do feel like a lot of the new plans now do have laundry in the like big closets. Like obviously the houses are a bit more extravagant, but it makes a lot of sense. Right. There's a lot of things that like our parents' generation and older, and like they're just like, why did they like it was just like that's the way it's done. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. The flow is so weird. You got me second guessing now. See, like my mindset was, I always thought that made a lot of sense. So, but my mindset was put it like attached to like a mud room. Cause I'm like, but like realistically, like how many times are you going to come in from the mud room stripped down? Like this goes in the laundry and then like walk across the whole house. But
my mom didn't do this originally, but when they got new washer and dryers, they took the old washer and dryers, put them in the basement, and like there's an entrance obviously into the basement. So like when it's snowing, go into the basement, throw your stuff in there.
For the 3 days a year that you actually might do that.
Or if you're muddy or whatever, like you can go into the basement. That's also where like there's a dog washing station and all the crazy things that we need as humans. But but like if the dog's dirty, like right into the basement, wash them in the dog washing station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but it doesn't have to instantly come. Like some of those things, it's like, but I want just convenience. Like I want the house set up to just be like super convenient, not to look nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll obviously look nice, but like it won't be to be
98% of the time
people
it's
to see.
Just you and Scott. So like, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
And the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on board with that. What the hell was I just going to say? I lost my train of thought. Oh, fuck, it's completely gone. I forget. I don't know. But yeah, the house plans and getting all that stuff finalized is a process, but it's exciting, fun stuff. We'll see. TBD. Do you guys know when you'd like to? So
we are waiting on approval to put a bridge in because there's like a creek. So another creek.
I was gonna say another creek.
But there's like a creek that runs through, so we have to like get approval, and then that's the only way to get back there.
Yeah.
Is, in the literally middle of the woods.
Really?
Like no.
Is it just like a small creek?
Sometimes.
Oh, sometimes.
Because it's Springbrook for a reason. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's good stuff. Speaking of Scott, so he has like a whole video production agency, however he labels it. I'm not 100% sure, but pretty much makes like high-end videos like for commercials. Like he's had, I think, a commercial on a Super Bowl ad and like crazy stuff. So like super high-end stuff for businesses and stuff. What's it like, I guess, balancing all that? So like both of you guys are obviously extremely busy, owning your own respective businesses. I don't know, like that just, it's crazy when one person has a business and trying to balance that with somebody with a normal workload. So like maybe it helps, maybe it hurts. That's what I'm curious to hear about.
So I think it helps most of the time, but typically like fills the voids for me a lot. I don't know if I do much for his business, but for mine, he definitely has, done all the construction in the buildings. And if I'm like, I want a deck, he's like, okay,
I'm on it.
and starts building a deck. Or if I'm like, this person didn't show up today, like I can't be in two places. He's like, all right, so he fills the voids a lot for me. But having like, he was just away this week. Then when he's gone, it's like, okay, now I'm me plus the void of him. And then all of the things that he does, like normal things like around the house and just like the things that are needed to survive. So it's not easy, but I would say him having his own business and like making his own schedule is much easier than if it was a 9 to 5.
Right.
So, I mean, it works out.
Because then like his downtime has to be your like relationship time or whatever, like spend quality time together.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
like, that doesn't always work for.
Yeah, most of the time there's not a whole lot of like things that we're going to like enjoy, and if it is, it's because something fell through the cracks or fell through, and we're able to just kind of be like, all right, we're going. So we try to schedule as much as we can, but right now is like a busy time. The summer is super busy, and that's obviously when you want to go to the beach. So it calms down in September, so we like to go do something around that time. But as for like a relationship, it's definitely not what I would recommend for most people. I don't think that most people would be normally even capable to spend 24 hours a day with another human being without someone dying. And there's definitely moments. Scott got, a roasted pepper jar thrown at him because I didn't wipe the floor properly or something. I'm like, would you like to see what happens when this roasted pepper smashes you in the head? He's just staring at me like, I didn't expect that. But it was just like the tipping point for me that day. Like, oh, I'm not wiping the floor properly right now. So,
just not what you wanted to hear at that time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely times where it comes close, but we've been able to navigate because, I mean, we're also with cooking all day with knives. So you really don't.
He's got to really watch his words because I don't think he would necessarily be the one to snap on you, but knowing your personality, I could see you getting hot every once in a while.
For sure. So, but no,
that's fun though.
It's good. And it's weird also, like he was away and he's like, I just got out of the car and it feels so strange because like we spent so much time together. Like, I mean, all day, every day. There's not a lot of time that we're not together. So it works out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's a cool dynamic for sure, but I definitely think you guys, it's probably like even unsaid or unwritten or whatever, however you want to say it, but where it's just like you guys just understand each other on that level where it's like, not that the business is coming first, but you're both on the same wavelength and have been for a long time. So it's like the it doesn't take a ton of work in that regard, I guess.
They have like been more of a priority than our relationship for sure since day one. I mean, since the day he met me, he understood that. So, and I don't think that would have ever changed whether it was him or someone else. I think it would have just more or less been like, this is what it is. Right. This is where my time and energy is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And if you're not on board or can't get on board, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So, he had the motivation to want to stay, but I also pushed him then to open his own business because at the time he was, working for a company. So I kind of gave him like more of like a kick. Yeah. I'm like, you can do this. Like, why are you not doing this? And there's such a need for it in this area. Although all my stuff gets pushed to the side, the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Because, he has all this
When
other...
a paying client comes a knocking, you're gotta.
So that's why the Yoga Fest video is always months after the event, but montages get it the same night.
Yep, that's the way it goes. Speaking of Yoga Fest, how did that all come to be, and like what? So I, again, going back to Lockheed, I remember saying this to Kelly probably first, and then I think we talked about it at one point. But again, just like 23 years old, I'm like, I legitimately think, like if there was a concert at Montage that you could get people to pay like $15, like just something very small, and go just for like a night out, because like sometimes there just isn't a lot to do around here, and it's a different event, and like people, and like, because at the time concerts were only $40, say, and people were just like, screw it, like $40, I'll go see whoever. Anybody. And like, even if I'm not a big fan, cause it's just a fun night out in the summer, I'm like, I think if you went up there with a DJ that was just playing like good music, like not a professional DJ, literally just like somebody running a playlist, that people would go up there to tailgate and party all night. Yeah. And he laughed at me, and I'm like, in hindsight, yeah, maybe not, but it's funny now, cause like the roundup, it's an event, like there's a real band playing and everything, but like the fact that like last year, like 750 people came to this like event that like 3 years ago they didn't even know what they were signing up for, is like crazy to me. And like I love it, like I absolutely love it. So I can't imagine, like Yoga Fest is on a whole different level in terms of how much you go into it. So like, to the uneducated, unaware person, like tell us everything about Yoga Fest.
Yeah, so I mean, Yoga Fest started the year after I opened the studio. So, and I was bartending at Montage, so that's kind of how it started. I was at Beer Fest, and there was no tips, so I decided to crawl back under the bar, and I'm like, give me a beer. That's actually the day I met Scott as well. So I crawled under the beer, I crawled under the bar, and Victoria was meeting me there, and I text her. I'm like, hey, like, I'm not going to bartend today, so if you want to come earlier. And she's like, yeah, I'll be there in like 30 minutes. So 30 minutes turned into 4 hours that I was by myself at the Beer Fest, by myself, walking around in sneakers and a backless shirt. It was quite the experience. So I was just like hopping around from like group to group, which is like wildly out of my comfort zone. And I was with Charlie at one point, and I'm like, Charlie, did you see all these people that came out here to drink beer? And he's like, yeah, what? This is great. Yeah. I understand. But I think that we can bring health and wellness into this area in the same way, where it's like, bring them out, let them come and experience like all the businesses that are in the local area that are driven around bettering ourselves. And he's like, do whatever you want. So that's how the Yoga Fest came to be. That first year we had like 200 people that came. I ended up doing it again in June, doing it again in September, doing it again in June. So I did 2 Septembers and 2 Junes, and then decided like I was competing with myself. And then we just stuck to the June, which is like the kickoff to summer. And a lot of people now are like, that's their favorite event of the year, which is wild to me. But also I put in like 10 months of work. So it's, this year we had between the 2 days, like close to 900 people. Wow. We had like 90 vendors and like 110 presenters throughout the weekend. We had music, and like I did a community dinner that's been really popular in the last couple of years. So like everyone afterwards, it's more like a wedding reception than anything else. But could imagine. Yeah, it's like everybody's like, I'm dead by that point, so everybody's just chilling. Like it's like people are talking, sitting with like a group of people that they normally wouldn't talk with, and then we have a VIP aspect, so that's like for them as well. So all the people that are VIPs come to the community dinner. But it's really just kind of bringing just everyone that enjoys yoga in the area, not just this area, but in the tri-state. We had people, like I looked on the map, like North Carolina, Virginia, tons of them, tons of people from Philly, mostly people from Philly and New Jersey. So obviously my marketing is working more there. But I would say 35% 5%. I didn't look exactly at like the end numbers, but like right before the event, that week before, we were like 35% local.
Damn.
And the rest were from out of town. So, you know, that's awesome. But at the same time, I think maybe I need to work a little bit more on getting like people that are in the area involved. I know it was tough like the first couple years because they didn't understand what it was, and I'm not like a competitive person when it comes to things like that. Like I believe in abundance. Like there's no lack. Like more people is just going to bring more people. And that's kind of what the slogan is for the festival. It's connection through abundance, which came to me in a dream. I had no idea what it meant. And it's really just allowing people to understand that the more you connect with people, the more you will create abundance. So the more that, you know, you and I exchange information and knowledge, that's only going to create more from that circumstance. And
I like it.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that stemmed from. And then it kind of continued to keep growing like every year. I really didn't even know what it meant. And then I had an instructor who passed away. He was an older gentleman, and he and I went through teacher training together. And I had a dream again. It was years later, and it was like this. It was weird. I have strange dreams, but
Me too, actually. Like very strange.
Very strange, wild dreams, vivid, colored. But a cardinal. First of all, I was on roller
Scott
skates.
microdosing you? Is
Maybe.
He's like,
He's
Chelsea
like, she needs
this.
to calm down.
Here's your acai bowl.
Yeah, right. It could be, but I was on roller skates with crutches, and I was rolling myself down the street, and a cardinal flew in front of me. It was huge though, and its nose, or the beak, not nose, the beak was blue instead of black. It was very strange, and it sang like a Sanskrit song. And I woke up and I searched it, and I'm like, what in the world does this even mean? And I mean, I've never heard it before. To be honest, I had a hard time even like finding information on it. I had to like ask somebody who speaks like, not speaks it, nobody speaks Sanskrit, but that could translate it for me. And they're like, oh, like search this instead. And it basically translated to may all beings be happy. And then as I started like diving into that, the verse before that states that, yeah, may all beings be happy, but until all beings are happy and until you want other beings to be happy, you yourself cannot be happy. And I think that kind of stems back into this abundance thought process. And for us, most of the time, abundance is more things and more money. But in like a spiritual aspect, abundance is more knowledge. It's more freedom. It's more happiness. It's more peace.
Right.
It's more joy.
Connections, whatever.
More, yeah.
Like, yeah.
So
it's like something that, not to cut you off, but like
Yeah.
that's something that's so lacking now too. Like the world, like social media, all this stuff that was supposed to bring people together has only driven us apart. And like so many people are more isolated and living in their like chambers, if you will, where it's just like there's a lot of people that like are not interacting with more than 3 people on a monthly basis, and like that's just not healthy. It's not how we're wired to be. And like to your point, like the abundance through connection or whatever, like it's just like genuinely something humans need. So like to have an event that pulls in 900 plus people, and just even if it's only a 2-day relationship, or maybe it's a 9-year relationship, like it goes a long way.
Yeah. And I've met so many people that they're like, oh, like I met this person at last year's event, and like now we're here, like going to it together and like sharing a hotel room. Yeah. So, I think that the aspect of that is extremely true and real. And I'm just a facilitator of it. Like I said before, like a lot of what I do is like my purpose, my dharma to this world, my like reasoning for doing it isn't as like cut and dry of like, oh, it's to like make X amount of dollars. And that's a tough conversation. Like when I talk to a coach, they're like, well, no, that's great. But I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like I truly believe like what's meant to be for me will be, and it has been held true my whole life. So, I think me teaching yoga and the yoga festival, that's my dharma, that's my purpose. It's why I do all the other things. But the cafe, most of the time, pays my bills. So if I didn't have my bills paid, I don't think I would be able to successfully teach a yoga class because I'd be stressed out about how I'm paying for my life.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, so much of it is, and like sometimes people take a negative, like the people who take a negative view on things, where it's like, do you need to be charging the blah, 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 all this stuff. But like, they're not necessarily understanding like that component of it that you just laid out so nicely, where it's like, if I don't charge these prices for whatever, then I can't do what I feel like I'm here to do and serve to the world. Like there has to be a financial component of it. It's doing good while doing well, basically. It's possible to do both. And like, I don't know, sometimes like closed-minded people can't see that, where it's like, you're just going to discredit all the work that goes into everything that you do. And, what you do to enable yourself to serve your higher purpose, if you will. Yeah. Yeah, but it's cool that you've identified that, even because I feel like a lot of people go through life where, and for a lot of people, like maybe there isn't a higher purpose. It's just be a good mom, be a good friend, be a good whatever.
That is a purpose.
Right.
So
a big one. Yeah.
That is like being a householder and like raising children that are going to come and maybe find their purpose is more than enough reason. And also we have different purposes throughout our life. Like you're not just going to be a mother. You're not just going to be, the people are going to move, the children are going to move out of your house, right? It's not just to be a business owner. I don't think that I want to be like I was saying before, like I don't want to just be a business owner my whole life. Like I want to have different aspects that I'm able to continue my purpose and dharma and develop it further. Maybe it's to help others find the bigger purpose of yoga. Because I think we, especially in this area, are forgetting that it's more than just a physical activity. It's not just, doing a million chaturangas and learning how to do a handstand, although that is great because our physical body needs it. But there's a huge mental component of it that is very much lost because they're not understanding the true purpose of why. They're finding their way onto their mat. Maybe they feel good afterwards. Maybe they, got to sweat and stretched and, they know that they feel better and different, but they're not taking anything off the mat with them. So I know myself, like my life has dramatically went in that perspective and allowed the things that are meant for me to come versus force. And I definitely was a lot more forceful like 10 years ago for sure. But now I'm like, well, if it's meant to be, it'll be, I don't know if that's life. Maybe it's life and maturity, but I think it's also once I gave up the reins of a lot of things, I was able to clearly see that it's still going to be all right.
Right. And the opportunities come knocking. You don't need to always seek them out. Like even like the Oppenheim thing that you're doing, like I have no idea how it came to be, but it's just like, if you just keep serving your purpose and doing your thing, people do recognize it, and then opportunities come your way just because of the way you're carrying yourself and conducting yourself as a human being, as a business owner, as a friend, as a partner, like all it's like the invisible PR, if you will, where it's just like, you don't know who got in whoever's ear, when it's just like, oh, she would be good for that. Right. Like, how did that happen? And like, you could never trace it all the way back, but as long as you're kind of doing your thing and you're being a good person and carrying your weight, opportunities usually do come knocking as long as you're putting in the work. It's interesting to think about. But I want to, like how you were saying, because I feel like it's such a Western thing to do, like the whole yoga thing, how it gets like commercialized and loses its real purpose. Like people saying that now, where it's like you hear all these conversations about, say, like DMT or psilocybin or all these hallucinogenic type drugs that exist in the world, if you were classified as drugs, where in other cultures they're considered sacred, and it's something that you do with a purpose, and you go in there and like, for a lot of guys listening, like Aaron Rodgers is like one of the most popular ones to have done it, and everybody thinks he's a kook because he comes back with this like new enlightened vision of the world, and it's like somewhat hippie or whatever you want to call it. But my point is the way that it starts is in a jungle. There's a shaman there. It's a ceremony. You go in with a purpose, and then slowly but surely the Western civilization takes it and it becomes a recreational drug. It loses its original purpose entirely, where it's supposed to be something that changes the way you view things, like you said, like you take it off the mat with you, like with yoga, where it's like, I don't know much about yoga. I'm hoping you could answer this for me, but like the origins of yoga, it was probably less physical and more mental, and now it's probably 70-30 the other way in America.
Yeah,
if I had to guess, I'm just making up numbers. But do you feel like what do you think? What split do you think currently exists? Like even in your practice, where it's like, are people just coming for a workout, or maybe because you make a pointed effort with you and your instructors?
So, and again, like the studio has grown and progressed and will continue to grow and progress, and with, you know, the years and experience and the time that I invest in different aspects of what the practice is and who I meet and what teachers I'm able to kind of connect with, and they're able to teach me and bring me into a different higher level of thinking. So I'll lose people sometimes because of that, because they are there specifically for fitness. So I start talking about this and they're like, oh, she's you know, going a little too deep now for me. And you know, maybe they don't come back, but they're also not ready for it. Maybe at that point, maybe they'll come back in 5 years. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I really don't care. You know, so for me, it's like I'm providing something. I'm not pulling anyone into that side of the business. I'm just providing.
Right.
And
it's there if you want it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, just
so,
do your physical. If you
I mean,
want,
I would say we have a lot more in the studio now than we ever did that are looking for like that deeper purpose. But I still teach a really strong yoga class. So like people are like, well, what is she talking about? Because she kicks our ass. So the understanding for me and like what made me love yoga was it made me feel like I was burning through all the craziness inside my head to find the moments of clarity. And I think that's similar to like, you know, the mushrooms and like these drugs, because they have a moment that this drug allows them to see clarity. That clarity is already there.
Right.
They just don't know how to tap into it.
Right.
So the same thing happens with meditation. The same thing happens with yoga. I mean, the reason I moved home from California was Shavasana was a moment in my yoga practice in San Diego. And it didn't come to me like in this enlightened, like, you know, godlike figure that came down and said, this is what you need to do. It literally came to me in the words of, go ask your boss. So at the time I was like an FP&A position at a business called Sequenom, which was like a really, I don't know, techie. I have no idea what they were doing, but I know they were testing blood. Who knows? But the guy who hired me was from Philly, and I walked in to his office and I was like, hey, like, I know I just started, but like I got another job opportunity with Lockheed Martin. He goes, stop right there. My father just retired from there. He was there for like, I don't know, 50 years or something. He's like, you have to take that job. And I was like, oh, I do? And I walked out and I signed the paper and I faxed it over and I cried. I literally went back in his office like 10 minutes later. I was like, I need a minute. And he said, that's okay, hon. I mean, you're not going to be here much longer, so it doesn't matter if you go back in your car. So I went back in my car. I, you know, called all my friends and like my surfer boyfriend from San Diego that I was like, so, you know, it was wild.
Yeah, it is wild how, yeah, like it just kind of, I'm sure just opens those doors for you. I know you've been like, well, not that you've been saying, but when we were both working at Lockheed, I've still never done yoga, which I know was irking you then, and I just never got around to it. But I am open to the experience. So one of these days, I'll give it a shot. But yeah, it's interesting because I think, you know, it exists for a reason, and it spread the way it did for a reason. Because a lot of people were benefiting from it.
I mean, I was the front runner for like yoga happy hour, and everyone's like, you can't drink and do yoga. I'm like, well, I just got 25 people here, so yes, I can.
Yeah.
And like for me, it was never discrediting what the practice of yoga is. I understand that you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to eat meat. You're not supposed to harm. There's all these different rules in yoga. But for me, I believe I'm a prophet of yoga. So if I can get more people in to try it, because, there's a glass of wine afterwards, that doesn't mean that the next time they come to yoga is only because there's a glass of wine afterwards.
Right.
I just got them in the door, and that's the hardest part.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I am, I'm a business person, and it's still going to be in my bones and in my genes to be able to sell things. It just comes a little easier for me in a way that I don't feel like I have to force it on people. I'm just providing it. If they want to come, great.
Yeah.
So, I got a lot of backlash for sure, right in the early days of incorporating different aspects that, weren't considered yoga-like. But at the time and now, I still don't think I did something wrong. And I still incorporate that. We have a yoga and brunch at the roof at Oppenheim. So
yeah, I mean, you would know better than me, but I don't feel like they are. Now I got myself twisted. They aren't mutually exclusive. You could do both.
Yeah. Most people are not signing up to be a monk.
Right.
Because they came to yoga.
It's just like religion. Like a lot of people who are Catholic or Christian or whatever, you're not doing everything that the Bible is saying. It's just like these guidelines and principles, if you will, if you even care to. And it's just exists as a framework for you. You don't need to do everything right by the book. And I don't think it was even always intended to be exactly by the book. You could eat meat and do yoga. You could be a faith-based person, believe in God and all of these things, and
not go to church on Sunday.
Right. Or eat meat during Lent or whatever. It's, I don't know. It's just that stuff.
Yeah, there's a fine line, because we live in a world of rules that once you break them, that everything else becomes gray. So I understand why there's a necessity for rules, and I get that alcohol sometimes makes and allows us to make bad decisions. So you can't be this clear-minded person if you're drinking alcohol. And also in the stance of the yoga tradition is it dulls your mind. So you can't be this best version of yourself if you're allowing it to dull your mind. So that's a tough one for me, because I'm I like it.
Yeah. Also, if you have 2 glasses of wine, you might be enhancing your mind.
Right.
If you have 10,
maybe not so much.
Right. But
so, I know it's
everything
it's
in moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation for sure. But the traditional studies of it state non-harming, and technically alcohol would be also considered harming to ourselves, self-harm. So, but yeah, by no means am I a monk.
You're just bending the rules a little.
Yeah.
That's all. Not even breaking.
And I'm introducing people to a practice that they might not normally have ever tried if it wasn't for this little nudge of hey, this is fun.
Right.
Try it.
So the one girl that was doing yoga for the last 3 months with you, because she loves everything about yoga and all these things, now brings 3 friends in because it's it's an event instead of a class. And
maybe 2 of them stay.
Right.
So
net you're ahead.
Right.
Or yoga's ahead, however you want to look at it. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a tough because there's a lot of different ideas that people are constantly throwing around, and they like to find the negative.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
You could do everything wonderful under the sun, and you're still going to find somebody that's they suck.
I know. It's even the whole, so this is piggybacking off this conversation as well. But I heard this quote when I was probably in college. And I do feel I don't know, the fitness craze kind of started maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Where people, our parents, working out was not a thing.
No, you didn't go to the gym then.
Some people ran or whatever.
Walked.
And then there was meatheads. You were either juicing up and Arnold, bodybuilder shit, or you were a runner and you just enjoyed running. But now I feel a lot of people incorporate it, realize the benefits, all this stuff. But there's this quote by George Carlin, who's a comedian. He said, in regards to the fitness craze, America has lost its mind, so they're trying to salvage its body. Which I think leads into why yoga probably came to the prominence that it did, because at first it was just kind of like gym goers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then yoga kind of stepped in and maybe tried to hit both of those.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting, but there is like, just like, I don't know, there's so many benefits to be had from both ends. Like,
Yeah.
just like the mental clarity. Sometimes it's just like like if you go to the gym, like the hour of clarity that you get, where it's just like,
And it's still community.
right.
It's still like that connection with people. Like if you are the type of person that only like talks to 3 people and you don't have some sort of like curriculum that allows you to work out or go to the gym or go to yoga or Zumba, whatever it is, then you're really in like a deficit of community and understanding that like we all need to connect. Like we are community beings.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about that.
Like we are truly, like at our roots, like meant to be sitting around a fire at night.
Yeah.
With at least a family, if not a tribe, because a family wouldn't allow you to survive. Like we were reliant on a bigger group because there had to be multiple hunters, because just your family, like,
Couldn't survive.
Right, like you literally wouldn't survive.
Yeah, I mean,
so
we may be going backwards into that.
Yeah.
My friends have all been joking that we were going to have like a cul-de-sac and we're going to all live in like our own little community, you know, and everyone has their job and, you know, I don't know.
Start a little farm. It kind of sounds awesome.
Yeah. It might
I've had this conversation too, where I'm like, I do feel like I don't know, because life is awesome right now. Like I am not blinded by that. And I also realized how quickly it could crumble. Like one like solar flare could literally fuck us completely in a matter of seconds. And I hate that because we're so reliant on not ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
But I do feel like our grandparents' generation, where it's like, have your little garden, work your little job, have your family, and like no rush. Like you eat dinner at 5:00 and then you go sit outside, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, play cards, and like that's it.
I know.
And like maybe they had it figured out, because like it's all slowly coming back to that, where it's like we have to slow down. Everybody's homesteading now and having big families and like communal type living and stuff, where like you could share a garden, you could whatever, and it's just like, oh, maybe they did, maybe I don't know.
Maybe
that shit worked for a long time.
Yeah, maybe we were wrong.
But life is easier now, that's for sure.
I think that a lot of things are at our fingertips, like, and it really just comes down to having like drive and tenacity to like get things done. I mean, if you have a phone, you have capability of making money.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy that in very different worlds than what we're doing, but like you could make like 250 grand a year from your phone, nothing else.
I know.
Even like my business, like, because there's like not capable of doing it 20 years ago. Like impossible.
Oh, impossible.
I could run the whole thing through my phone.
Yeah.
Like if I paid a distribution center to fulfill orders.
Yeah.
Like I could literally just be completely offline on a beach running a business if it was more successful. Yeah. Like it's good, not great, but just the fact that you could. There's just no excuse. Like if you do have higher ambitions, I think you just gotta kind of, like you said, like you do need those moments of clarity, and whether it comes from yoga or mushrooms or meditation, community or just talking to people, not like to, I don't know, this sounds like boastful, but like us, how I was saying, like talking to you about just business ideas when we were just like trying to figure our shit out, just having those conversations, it gets your wheels turning a little bit. I don't know, but it does take that action at least to get the wheels in motion and, you know, get the ideas turning to open that door, if you will. Talking about like ambitions, like higher ambitions, if you had to go all the way down in your core, like it could have been an 8th grade girl when you were in 7th grade that said you were ugly or something, where it's just like, I'm going to show all these motherfuckers wrong, and like you have this chip on your shoulder. Or it could be just like your dad was an entrepreneur or whatever. Like what, at your core, what do you think is your driving force?
I mean, I always had the drive. Honestly, like it really did stem with like making more money. I will say that it started with that. That's definitely not why I'm here now, but I would have made a lot of different choices if that was the case, if I was dealing specifically with money. But for me, I always liked like making more and like seeing the numbers go up ever since I was a kid.
It becomes
like,
a little bit of a game.
Yeah.
But
like
also the
2 years
money's
old.
nice. Yeah.
I'm like, like 50 cents. I'm like counting it and like every day, like counting my money. And kind of that spiraled throughout my life. So, I mean, I joke about this. My last year in college, I made more than my first year out of college and got 2 college degrees.
Wow.
So I always had like drive. I always had hustle. I always had tenacity, and I allowed those even to this day to also be a limitation for me. So people see me and they're like, oh yeah, like she works so hard, blah, blah, blah. And now I don't have like an off button with it because I'm just so programmed for it. So it's like somebody who runs a marathon. It's like, okay, well so once they do it once, there's no longer like the practice to get there. Like I've been doing it so long, it's not, I don't have to practice anymore. It's just inherent. It's just like a part of my being. So I think that at the core of why I own businesses is because of the limitations that I had in corporate world. And why I knew that there would always be a glass ceiling for me, especially as a female in the industry that I kind of chose to go into. Most of the times I was the only female sitting at those tables. And, whatever I did, it was always like, let's think about it. Like almost like pacifying me in a way versus like, well, this makes sense. And there was definitely a few people there that were like, why didn't we think of this? Because a female thinks different than a guy. Like it's just inherently different. Like I remember once I was doing the presentation and afterwards he's like, this is a good presentation, but it had a little bit too much color. And I'm like, I'm literally showing numbers on a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm sorry that I'm trying to make it a little bit more interesting.
Right. Do you want people to check out by the 3rd slide or the 9th slide?
Right.
Like there is an element of audience retention.
Cares.
Yeah.
And you have, I mean, can you imagine what the cost per hour of the people sitting in those meetings were? Thousands of dollars per hour.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the CEO, CFO, the manager of finance. We had the program manager.
Yeah,
I mean,
and if you're not keeping their
insane.
attention, like what the hell is the point?
Right. And I'm like, but I left that meeting and I'm like, all right, fuck yeah, black and white. And then I took a step back. And then I put a whole presentation together how I could save them millions of dollars. And they said, yeah, we don't have the resources to make this work. I'm like, but I just did all the work.
Right.
And you already paid me to do this.
Hire the resources, spend the $200,000 to save $1 million.
Save millions.
Yeah.
And honestly, I already had the whole system done.
Right.
And I was like, all right, all this was going to do was allow me to not do spares and repairs anymore. Yeah. That was the only thing that was supposed to do because I did not want to do it.
Yeah.
So that was, and then eventually somebody came in and they're like, why haven't we been doing this? Hands it over to somebody else. I never had to see it again. So
yeah, I think to your point, like there are times, and it's not in the sense of like women are smarter or men are smarter.
We just think
like,
differently.
Just differently at times. And like when it is black and white, everything's equal. Like there is no man, woman. It's whoever's like the best fit for the job. But then like when you could take a step back from the business and reassess, like, are we doing things the most efficiently here? A guy might look at it in terms of reallocating the heads that are there. Like we have these 4 people on this job. You know what? Maybe it could be 2 or 2.5 and 1.5 spent somewhere else. Where a female might say, well, like take one more step further back and say, like to your point, like we could be doing this completely differently.
Well, I was like, we don't have to do this at all.
Right.
We shouldn't be touching the screws that we're
right.
then bringing in house to then send out. And eventually that is what happened. But like it's crazy that there's just so many hoops to jump through in jobs like that.
Yeah.
That every time the wind just kept getting taken from my sails, that I was like, this is too much.
Yeah. And it does just defeat you, and then you're like,
defeating.
if you stick around long enough, you just end up conforming to the system. And it's just like, all right, I'll go through the motions.
Yeah.
I'll slightly exceed expectations and
That's
get
it.
my friggin' 4%, 3%
Right.
raise every year,
And that's it.
until the new job opens up.
Yep.
And
And maybe
I've been here the longest, so maybe I'll get it. Yeah.
maybe.
Right. I know.
You know, but the week before that, you might have screwed something up. So that's the reason.
Right.
So for me, it was like I knew that really, really early on, but I also like I learned a lot there, and I also feel like they invested a ton of education in me. So I don't discredit or would choose any other way. You know, maybe going to another company could have changed it, but I mean, on a resume, like Lockheed Martin is like one of the best.
Yeah. Pretty good.
It's not a bad company to say you worked for. So I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I did it. But I very quickly knew after starting my first full-time job that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Both my parents also are entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what I was getting at when I said like down to your core, like you could accredit it to genetics, or it's just the nurture aspect where it's just you're exposed to, and even if they're not pushing it on you, you're just going to be exposed to conversations that two parents who were teachers, maybe,
right.
like the conversations are just different, even if they're not at you or towards you, just overheard. Like when your dad or mom owns a business, and it's impossible to not hear and get some carryover to the house, even if they are actively trying to stop. And like, so like kids don't care about this. We shouldn't be talking about this right now. Like wait till they go to bed, whatever. Like you're just going to be present for some of those conversations. And then it just becomes this opportunity that otherwise, like to our point where it's just like the door is unlocked then. And it's only open a smidge because it's just like, oh, that's even an opportunity where like, I do genuinely like feel bad sometimes for people who aren't exposed to that. And it's just like, you go through high school and it's like, well, what am I going to go to school for? I don't know. Right. Maybe I'll just be a teacher, or I'm good at math. Maybe I'll get into engineering or whatever it is. It's like,
well, our systems are so broken.
You just end up doing these jobs by default.
Yeah.
And like, then like I'm in the workplace with some of these people. I'm like, if you ever owned a business, like with your work ethic, the way you aren't just like singularly focused on like your discipline, like you see the big picture, you get the business part. Like if you ever owned your own business, you would be crushing it right now. But it's just like
they can't take the leap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that owning a business is for the faint of heart by any means. I think for most people, they should not own a business. And not saying that like that in a bad way. I just think that most people don't understand what truly goes into it. They don't understand that you lose yourself before you find yourself again in owning a business. So, I mean, I, again, grew up with it. And I lived a small business life where like 1 week we're, lobster and steak and like made all this money. And the next week my mom's like, I think we have to sell the curtains. So, it was something that was easy for me to like understand that some weeks you're going to feast and most weeks you're going to have a famine, and you have to understand and be able to navigate through those things. But most people are more inclined to want the, steady guaranteed amount. And I was too, but I knew that like I had to get myself out of it. So I actually put all of my money for the last 2 years into my 401k at Lockheed. Cause I'm like, if I can't make it work now, I'm not going to make it work when I don't have this luxury of a full paycheck.
Yeah. It's like comes up constantly, but it's just like, you just got to go all in at some point and bet on yourself. That's all it boils down to, really. All right. So speaking of, your entrepreneurial spirit at your core, and you could take your time with this, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So do the tasks that you like doing and pay somebody else to do the ones that you don't like doing.
It's a good one.
That is probably something I've known before I even owned a business.
It's also like recognizing your weaknesses too, like the self-awareness to just be like, could I do this all? Yes. Should I? No.
Right. Or do I want to?
Right.
And what's going to get pushed to the side? So like my laundry. is one of those things. Should I be washing my clothes? Can I wash my clothes? But do I wash my clothes? No. So I have somebody come in and wash my clothes and hang them.
Right.
Otherwise, there will be piles of dirty clothes everywhere in a small apartment that is only going to lead to then me and Scott screaming at each other at some point. Like, why are we living like we're in a frat house?
And it's like, hey, even if it takes an hour, well, in that hour, if you were otherwise spending it on your business, you could be earning 3 times the amount that you're paying somebody to do that. So it's like people might view that as spoiled or whatever, like spoiling yourself. It's your own money, but like spoiled is not the word, but whatever.
Entitled or
whatever the word is. But it's like, it's just when you look at the numbers, it makes sense.
Yeah. So that I would say that that's probably one of the things that I also actively still use. Like, and I've had other like pieces of advice that were meant to be for the time being, but nothing that like stood with me that I'm like, oh, this is like,
you still remember it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like a part of my business now.
Yeah. It does. Sometimes it does come along at the right time and then just kind of slip and it's gone, but it worked for that year or whatever.
And I mean, I listen to all the people.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins.
It's like information overload now at this point. Like you hear so much advice from those guys that it's like hard to. I could actively listen to like a hour and a half long podcast, and if I retain one sentence from it, I'm like good.
It's a lot.
It's too much. I sometimes I need to like out because I'm just like, well, I'm gonna shower. Maybe I'll throw a pod on, or I'm gonna walk the dog. I'm gonna throw a pod on, and it's like diminishing returns at that point. Like I think it's like productivity rain dance. I'm like, think I'm doing something that's helping me, but it's actually not doing anything or potentially hurting because my attention span's going down. I'm not like getting anything from the actual thing.
Information out there that's very convoluted and competing that
navigating those waters.
Yeah. Like what is the right thing? And, I mentioned before, like, I do think that I'm at a point in my business that I have to really listen to that voice that's saying, like, I cannot be the operation of this business. I have to be the owner. And whatever steps need to be made in order to get to that level, I can't scale. I can't grow anymore. If I'm using my full capacity to do all these businesses, marketing, making the food, creating the menus, everything that goes into it, doing payroll, doing the taxes, doing the sales tax, like all of that. And then I have no time, unless it literally comes to me while I'm sleeping, of what the next move is.
Right. You don't have time to take a step back and think. It's like
enjoy what I'm doing.
You need to step out of the like it's what's the phrase? Work on the business, not in the business. Yeah. I don't know.
But it's hard to do. Like, and it's getting the reins up. Like every day I'm like,
trusting
who's going to leave
people.
a negative review? Like, are we going to get a 1-star review on Yelp? And I think that that's our culture as well. It's so backwards when it comes to.
There's no grace. Like they just had an off day or that's a new employee. They fuck something up.
Right.
Like
who
that.
cares?
That's not a reflection of the business. That's just one day and a new employee. Like don't rip people apart. Like, especially local businesses. Like
and
give people a chance.
Lives forever.
Right.
On a platform.
People are such
don't
scumbags. They
that.
take so much pride in that too. Like it's like their little like, ha gotcha fucking moment. Like, dude, they don't realize the impact. No. It's brutal.
Like
it's
45
so
reviews, one-star review is gonna bring me down.
Like here's when you leave a 1-star review. You
couldn't eat the food.
Not even that. You couldn't eat the food. You asked for a correction. The owner comes out and is an asshole. Acts like you're the asshole for asking for a second plate because it wasn't done properly or whatever. Then rip that owner.
Right.
But like to rip a business apart because of an employee, the way that one employee acted.
$10.
You're not a puppeteer. Like you can't control if an employee says or does the wrong thing. You address it and like maybe like if like they should reach out to you and be like, hey, just wanted to let you know I had this experience today. Like didn't appreciate it. But like
It doesn't have to be an
the
immediate
1-star reviews
Yelp
piss me off
review.
so bad.
I know.
People are just losers. Also, if you're leaving Yelp reviews,
Like, get a life.
yeah.
But if we become millionaires in some way, shape, or form, like we have like a whole plan to like literally break down the review system, like get rid of it.
It needs
what
something.
Facebook did. Recommend, not recommend.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Like it should not be a star rating system for most businesses.
Yeah.
Like Airbnb, for example.
Because also just the nature of most reviews, people aren't inclined to leave a good review. It takes an exceptional experience to leave a good review and next to nothing for people to complain because people love complaining.
Right.
So
negativity breeds negativity.
Right. Like the nature of reviews in general are going to lean negative.
Right. But like I look at reviews, maybe because I own a business, but like if I'm going to a place out of town, I'm reading the reviews about the restaurant.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate around them?
I know.
And Yelp is in the business of putting businesses out because I've personally called and was like, listen, this is a disgruntled employee. I didn't even have 11 people in my establishment at the time that they're saying that this happened. And let me just also tell you that 2 of them were my parents.
Yeah. There should be some way to verify, like there should be a validation process before you leave a review.
Right.
Where it's like make the reviewer jump through a hoop or two, prove whatever they're saying is going to be true. Like, I don't know if it's
a photo or
like I don't know. Like if your steak
or
was
like make it more difficult.
Something.
Maybe like you have to take a photo of yourself with your ID or something.
Yeah.
You can't just be creating fake accounts.
Right. There also could just be bots. Like
bots
we don't
as
really
well.
run into it probably, but like if you're in a big city, like I'd pay big money. Like I wouldn't do this, but like if I was a scumbag, I would pay big money to have the steakhouse on the road shit on so people come to mine when they're Googling best steakhouse in New York City. Like, yeah, fuck them. I don't know them, right? Like that's the mindset. Yeah. But like hopefully in like small towns like ours, like that's not happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, the system's whacked.
Yeah. It's tough. The reviews are like make me want to jump off a bridge. And as much as I don't want to feel like, oh, it doesn't matter and I shouldn't be.
No, that definitely matters.
It keeps me up at night.
It's not a comment on an Instagram post that's gone the next day. That's a Yelp review. Like to your point, it's there forever. That's what people see.
And I have been getting better with it because I'm like, well, we're still going to have customers that come in.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. And like, I can't let it really.
Especially new businesses though.
Right.
Like you're at the point now where like you're good.
I'm established. People know who we are.
If it was the first year or two and there's 50% or more like bad reviews, number one, that's not a good sign. But also like, don't leave the bad reviews. Like just talk to the owner. Like when people are just getting off their feet, like restaurants and shit like that, like give people some grace.
Yeah.
Also, like even if you're not leaving reviews, like people are like, nope, I had a bad meal there. I'm never going back. That's crazy too. Like people have off days. Like you could get a bad meal anywhere, anytime. Like if I have 3 bad meals somewhere, okay, I might not go back. But
and a lot of times it's people from out of town too. Like especially with the Yelp reviews.
Nothing to lose.
Like I just had somebody leave like a 4-star review and he's like, 4-star review, soon to be 5. But you're never going to be back here.
Right.
Are you going to come back and change this review? So that's what I responded. I was like, well,
why not 5?
Why did you take the time out of your day to do that?
Yeah, good.
I just want to understand your mindset for a second.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Don't you feel like opening a cafe or a coffee shop or a restaurant or a yoga studio or a gym, like I feel like those are like 5 of the most common things that like people at an early age are like, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro.
I know.
No.
So
I have that reality check all the time. Like I'm like, I want to open it. I don't want to run it.
Right. Well, it's funny because like I saw my buddy recently and like we were going to yoga together literally 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. And like I introduced him to it and this literally just happened on Saturday. And he's like, it's funny because you said you wanted to open a yoga studio because you didn't like what was going on like at the time. And like, not even that I didn't like what was going on, but I wanted like a community style space, which I didn't live in California before that, but I knew that there was something missing with it. And, I I never wanted to open a coffee shop. I will say that for sure. That was just more of a need. And I always wanted to open a restaurant. So I wanted, I said I was going to open this yoga studio, and then I completely even forgot about it. And then I was on like restaurant. I wanted to open a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and I wanted my grandma's recipes because she was getting old. So it was, that idea. But if I would have known how much work the cafe would be, and that like it completely changed from this like 2 hour to 3 hour a day like gig that I had with the yoga studios to like full blown 10 to 16 hours a day. I don't know if I would have done it, because I just don't know if I actually make.
Is it completely worth it when you
like
net
I don't think I make
out?
enough for how much time I put into it.
Right.
Which is again why I'm like, I gotta pivot. But for like people that like see that I'm successful and they're like inspired by that, like great, love that. But at the same time, I wish that maybe they would have approached me and been like, hey, I have this idea. I really like what you're doing. I would be like, okay, listen, we should help each other versus start to become competitors. Versus like, let's try to do the same exact thing, but I have a head start.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really hard for you to catch up. And by the time you catch up, I'm already pivoting to the next thing. By the time you just kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
So instead, that never really happens. And that's like a la la land of my world.
No, I think that's everywhere. And like, especially NEPA, I feel like, obviously, I don't know. It's
there's
the only
always
thing
going
we
to be
have
people
to
that piggyback.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that there's a million brands that are trying to rip off what you're doing, and it will always happen.
But it is like, to your point, it's just like the other phrase. It's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's like you could do a lot more. Like even what's going on with you guys at Oppenheim, it's like could do it all by yourself, or if you collaborate, like like number one, like right off the top, you just get the cross promotion off from two other successful people, so that helps.
100%.
But yeah, everything that comes with it, obviously, just different ideas, you get different wheels turning. It's just the opportunities just present themselves. It's a really good point. I don't know, maybe they're listening, maybe they'll take your advice.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe
all 300 of them.
Well, maybe someday, right?
Yeah, maybe someday. So there's however many friggin' million podcasts or whatever. Yeah, but it's like basically
like people that see them.
If you do 21 podcasts, you're already in the top 1%. Just because, so the numbers get conflated. So there's a million podcasts out there, and what do you listen to? But like a lot of them are just sitting in limbo or like never even started. So my point is I'm fully committed to doing this for like 3 years and then reassessing. No, to your point, I need to hire somebody to edit these. I would do it all the time if I had somebody editing, but like by the time I actually edit it and then cut it all up, get this like sizzle reels out and everything, it's my original goal was once a week, but it's not realistic. Until I could hire somebody to do that. So if anybody's out there and interested in editing podcasts, I'm all ears. But so I'm just gonna try and do it as often as possible. But like I've just heard it so many times now from successful podcasts, and it's like proof. Like I'm living proof. Like never heard of these podcasts in my life, and then they're like in year 4, and now I listen to them every week. And like I was always just like Rogan forever, and then like some other ones just to mix it up, like funnier ones here and there, just to like give myself like brain some relief. And like they fall off, but I picked up these new guys, and now I listen every week. I don't miss, and I literally didn't know who they were before 6 months ago, and they've been doing it for like 6 years. So I'm like, you just have to have a huge body of work before you could really even say like, was it a success or not? So that's my plan.
Just keep going. Whatever happens. I know. I definitely know, like for myself, I have to get more like face forward with that's where like everything is
just
going
the way it
right
is
now.
I know it's brutal.
It is. So hopefully it changes in a year.
I know. Something else will be
Something else will be out, I hope.
Maybe AI versions of
Yeah,
you,
right?
and you just give it a script.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be perfect.
It's like,
maybe that's the move.
that might be the move. It'll be nice.
Right?
Because at least the sentiment will be there. They'll know that the thoughts and ideas are
Right.
still coming from you. It's just not you all make-upped up.
Right.
You just you could
just
still
done.
just go to class.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming up. I appreciate it. It was good catching up. It's been a while since we last chatted, so it's cool to hear about everything you're doing. But in a closing tradition, I'm trying to make a better effort. I've been pretty good lately. I just like asking the guests, like, what's their favorite local spot right now? Could be a restaurant, could be whatever. Preferably something that doesn't have your name on it.
I mean, I don't have time to really do anything else, but I do always go to Anthony's in Old Forge, so that's like my spot. And Salerno's, those are like my 2 spots, so I'm sure that they know.
Shout out.
Shout out to Phyllis.
That's Anthony's is so good.
Yeah.
We were there. It was probably over the winter. Oh my God, it was so good. It was the first time I was there in years too.
Yeah.
And it just hit. I got a filet and it had some sort of sauce on it, which I'm usually not a fan of.
Yeah, their food is so
and it
good.
just slapped. It was so good.
But yeah,
Salerno's,
they don't disappoint.
Can't go
Salerno's
wrong
is
there.
always my go-to as well.
Salerno's is good. We I don't know if you saw, but we did a pizza draft podcast. Salerno's left off the list, which was tough. I know.
Well, it depends on which one. Is it white double stuffed or is it regular?
So it was weird. We did it.
I think you have to do white.
We
'cause,
did.
Like,
We
that's
did
something different
particular
around this area.
Yeah, we did like particular slices. So there was 4 of us, and I think we did 5 rounds. So everybody picked their favorite round, their favorite square, their favorite specialty, a miscellaneous, and a 1 topping. And so, yeah, so it wasn't like a good indication of like necessarily always the best spots around here for like, hey, if you love pizza, go to this place.
But also,
it was
how
like
many people were
particular
from
slices.
here?
I know. So I said that too. And I'm like, I picked.
You needed a couple people from Old Forge.
I know. Yeah. Things would have been differently. Oh yeah. Benny's got picked heavy, which is good. But I'm like, are we leaning way too Valley heavy right now, guys? And I tried to put that on the table so they would maybe acknowledge some more Old Forge. Yeah.
And do like a 1 bite.
We should have narrowed
no
it.
name. Like they didn't know who.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Like have the name underneath.
We're gonna run the pizza pod back.
Yeah.
I like that format though. Maybe go blind.
Yeah. Go blind.
Yeah.
They don't know what pizza it is.
That's the best. I know you don't
1
have
bite.
tons of time for parties and stuff with friends, but we did that once. We had a party here just with, I don't know, say there was 20 people, not even, maybe 16 people, like a bunch of couples.
Yeah.
And everybody brought a tray from a different place. Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah, we did
just
that at my
party
house
cut
before,
it.
yeah.
So fun.
And we made our own pizza. It was like a shit show, but yeah, no, I know. And we did it with wings too.
Ooh,
just
that's a good one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good wing spots around here too. All right, before we go down the food rabbit hole,
Yeah, right.
Thanks again for coming up. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck with everything. I'm sure, not that you really
No
need
luck.
it. You're gonna.
I know. I always say, don't wish me luck. Just send me energy.
All right, I'll send you energy, whatever that means. All right, thanks, Chelsea.
All right.
Bye.